Alright, hello and welcome back to my Unity tools tutorial in, well, Unity, frankly, but whatever. Today we're going to be starting on working on our little level creator thing that we're going to make, sort of like an example. Because I wanted to make one basically, that's why. So basically what we're covering today is creating tiles in the world and having them like a way to sort of find a tile, basically based on where the mouse cursor is, and having them sort of all the data we're storing about them be consistent. Well, get saved when we click play mode and then go out of play mode, just so like it'd be easy to test the levels when you're making them and stuff like that. So just a quick demo first. So if I click create a new editor map here, you'll see it has created a little grid of tiles here, and as you can see on the little output here, you'll see that it changes based on where the mouse cursor is. So you'll see that we're currently at tile at 4,4, and if we click on this tile, it is at the position 4,4. And now if we go back into the level creator, we can expand this grid further. So if we expand it on the left, then on the right, you'll see that it'll give us new ones. So now we're at 19,4. We click on it, 19 and 4. Hopefully you can see that at the little transform bit, but yeah. And again, we can expand it on the top and bottom. There we have a load of tiles in that one. And we got this divided up into rows and stuff, which I will explain in a minute. Okay, let's go look at how this was done. Okay, so first off, something I probably should have put in the last episode, but I forgot, is a platform-dependent compilation. Now, when you're creating editor extensions or custom inspectors or whatever, chances are you're going to be using the basically things from the Unity editor, like libraries. So, because it's convenient, easy to manipulate. One thing I'm using is editor utility.setDirty to mark that an object has changed, so it needs to be saved again. One issue with this is that when you try and create a build, it will produce an error because you can't have this kind of code when you're running it as a separate build outside the Unity editor. It'll run fine in the editor, but when it's outside the editor, it just won't compile. So what you need to do is surround it with hashtag #ifunityeditor and a matching endif here. What this is platform-dependent compilation, which is basically saying only compile all the code between this if and the endif at the bottom if we are running in the Unity editor. So basically, if we were in a build outside the editor, this script wouldn't be compiled. Yeah. There also are other versions of this, so you could have like for iOS, Android, and check if it's an actual build and not in the editor, stuff like that. So yeah, there's a documentation on the Unity website. You can go Google that. And you don't have to have like the entire thing, entire script surrounded, if you can just have a small section of the script, if that's what you want. If you're having like a combined, say like AI, but I had a tool to place patrol points. I think I showed you that before. So I had if Unity editor just covering the bit, the section that placed patrol points, but the rest of it would still get compiled. So yeah, that is something important that you need to know. Okay, so first off, I'm just going to show you the tile class. This is fairly blank at the moment because we've not needed to use it so far. But yeah, I've got a bool for is blank. So basically this is just to represent whether a tile has been used or not. So if it's not used and you're in play mode, it'll call them all or disable all the tiles that aren't actually used. Yeah, and it's got a reference to the actual game object of the tile that it's on, which is set when the tile is created. But yeah, that's it. That'll be used more going forward when we do like stuff like changing the tile sprites and whatnot. Next is the tile chunk class. So basically, with this tile editor, I've got it was an idea like a performance saving thing. I don't know. Basically, we've got tiles divided up. The world, is divided up into 5x5 grids of tiles, which I've called chunks. Just for whatever reason, storing. I think it helps with. I think it will give some kind of performance increase storing them, rather than having to access them all individually. But whatever. So first off, you'll notice that instead of having a 2D array, we have 5 separate 1D arrays from 0 to 4. This is because 2D arrays aren't serializable, but one-dimensional arrays are, which I'm not sure why, but that's just how it is. So in this so for this, we've had to have a 5 separate 1D arrays, which sort of represent the y-axis of what will be the 2D array. So basically, what we're doing is we have a 5 by 5 array, but it's 1D arrays basically. So I've got the initialization here, and we've also got the starting coordinates. Basically, for a chunk, I'll just show you here. I just grab chunk. Where are you? Let's move you out. So probably fuck up the thing, but yeah. Basically, this tile will be considered the starting point, and then each other tile is then moved out to the right and above. So that is how the tile is created. So the origin point is the bottom left tile of the chunk. And that's how it's generated. So that is what the starting coords represent, is just that bottom left point of the chunk. And I've got a method to initialize it. And we've got a method for inserting tiles into the this sort of like structure of tiles that we have. So we've got an x coordinate, which is the position in the array, and the y to signify which array we're using. So in case we would just use the switch statement for this basically. So it checks for the number. If it's 0, it uses tiles 0, 1, tiles 1, then you get the point. And then it adds in the tile that is also passed into it. We also have a method for getting the tile based on the position of the mouse. What we do, so this is the position of the mouse in the world, so it'd be not in the screen coordinates. So what we do is, if the mouse is not out of this, if the mouse is less than the starting coordinates, then we return null. Basically. Actually, I should probably have a condition for if it's more than or equal to 5 as well. Oh well. I'll improve that later. Yeah. So basically what we're doing is, if the mouse coordinate is lower than the starting coordinates, we're saying, alright, the mouse isn't in this chunk, so we don't have to run for all this code. But if it is, we basically check if basically take the starting coords .x and y from the position of the mouse in the world, and that will give us a number between 0 and 4, including both of those numbers, which we can then use as an index to sort of get what tile we're over. Yeah. So we just round that to an integer and put it in a switch statement with the y coordinates, work out which array we're using, and get that tile x, and it returns that. And that is how I don't even need to use play. What am I doing? No, I'm clicked it again. Sorry. Yeah, and that is how the whole output little bit there works. So I'll just try and make that a bit bigger. But yeah, you can see that the tiles change based on where the mouse is, and that's how that works. I've also got a method to get all the tiles in the list, which basically just adds all the tiles to the list and returns it. And I've got a reset chunk, so it says, all right, all the tiles are new. Well, basically just reinitializes all the array values. And that's it. Again, because we can't serialize a 2D array, I've had to create a separate class for having rows of tile chunks, because that was the easiest way to do it, basically. So we have like a row will contain a list of game objects, which basically refers to the tile chunks in the array. And then our level creator has a list of rows, which, yeah, basically is that, you know, we've got a list of rows, and each row has a list of tile chunks, which are, yeah, basically that. Okay, again, these are just kind of normal methods. Instead of actually storing the tile chunk class, we actually store game objects, because game objects are a serializable type in Unity. So this whole makes it pretty convenient with the whole going into play mode and going back, because Unity will do a lot of heavy lifting for us, and all the values won't disappear. But just to be on the safe side, I've added serializable. But to do that, you will have to be using system, or you could just put system.serializable here, which is the same. And I will zoom it. I know someone complained to me that they couldn't read the code, but go into 1080p, please, because I've forgotten to fucking put it in. Where's the zoom? I'll zoom in now. Zoom in. Zoom in again. There we go. That should be hopefully legible enough. So yeah, I'll just quickly go over the code again. But yeah. So sorry, got distracted. All right. So yeah, list of tiles in a row as game objects because it's easier to serialize, because Unity will do it for us. But I've just marked it as serializable just in case. We've got methods to add the chunk to the end. So say if we were expanding to the right, I believe, we'd use this method. But if we were expanding to the left, we'd use this method because it adds it to the start of the list. So all the chunks will be in the correct order in the array as they are represented in the world. We've got a clear array, so it'll just reinitialize the list. And we've got a method that basically converts this game object list to a tile chunk list and returns it. As you can see now, I'll just go over the tile again with this new zoomed in bit. And yeah, so again, you can see we've got using system and serializable just to be safe. Starting chords and whatnot. Yeah, sorry it's not been zoomed in. It's just I'm kind of fine reading it because it's like full 1080p iMac, so it's easy enough to read when it's small on the screen. And that's the level creator inspector, so we're doing that in a second. Okay, so now we get onto the main level creator bit. First off, we've got an isInitialized boolean. That's just marking out whether we've actually got a grid created or not with this particular instance of the script. I've got a prefab for tiles, so that's just an individual tile. Then we've got a list of rows of tiles, which is basically just the rows class I showed you before, but stored as the game object the rows class is attached to. I will show you that in the actual game. So as you can see, we've got on the level creator, we've got a list of the rows of tiles that are stored in the order which they appear in the scene. So row 3 will be the top one, then row 2, row 1, row 0, then rows 4, 5, and 6 to the bottom. The numbering doesn't really make sense because it goes off, it's named based on how many rows are in the fucking list at the time, but whatever. So you'll see they're all stored in the rows of tiles list. If we go onto a individual row, we'll see that they've got a list again of the tiles in the row, and that just stores all the chunks. And if we go onto the chunks, we'll see that they have 5 arrays, are all 5 long, which store the tiles that are in that individual chunk. And you can see that we've got 5, the starting coordinates again. So this one is the middle one actually. It goes from 0, 0 to, yeah, you can see it. And if you click play and then stop again, we'll see that all this information has carried over. We got the row, still got the chunks in, and the level creator, again, still got the chunks. So it's all good. All right, and these two are just for displaying it. So I've got the mouse position and the output, which is basically just saying what what tile we are hovering over and what chunk it's in. First off, we've got a method just to quickly initialize it. So basically check that the row of tiles list has been initialized. We set the isInitialized boolean to true, which is used in the inspector, which I'll show you in a minute. And then we initialize it again for some reason. Why have I done that? Oh well, that was not needed. And then we create the initial row. Let's go to you. Basically, this just adds the starting row to the list. And adds a row script to it, and then adds it to the list, and whatnot. It's a new game object. So yeah, that's added to the list, and then we create a new chunk, which is a method basically to create a chunk of tiles. If you know that. which has 3 arguments. So I'll actually go to the method there. Go to declaration. So the first off is the starting coordinates, which is basically the bottom left point of the chunk that I told you about. The row index is basically the row that it's a part of. So in this case, we're passing in 0 because it's the only one we have because we're just initializing the row of chunks, yeah. And we've basically got an attached chunk to the end. There's a boolean for whether we want it put on the start of a list or at the end of a list to signify, like, if that was used if we're expanding the grid to the left or the right, because we're not adding new rows, we're just adding chunks to existing rows. Basically, we just create a new game object for the chunk parent. Calling new game objects basically just is the same as instantiate, but it'll just create a blank game object at coordinates 0, 0. And then we just add components to it, like the tile chunk. We initialize it with coordinates. We set the parent name. We set the parent to be the row of tiles game object that we passed that we're getting from the row index. And then basically we're using 2 for loops to create the tiles, and we add in the x value to the start coordinates to get the correct position of where to create the tiles. And we're just using the tile prefab again, and we're not giving it any rotation because it doesn't need it. And then we're setting the parent of the tile that we're creating to be the chunk parent, so it's nice and neat in the hierarchy. And then we are actually getting the tile, and we're setting its game object reference, and then we are adding it to the array tile chunk. Sorry. So we're calling that set tile method that basically just works out where it's supposed to be in an array, like I showed you before. And yeah, and then finally we get onto the if attached to the end is true. We'll call the add chunk to the start method. So that'll basically just uses insert to add it at index 0 to the list. Whereas if attached to the end is false, we attach it to the end. So that is actually the wrong way around. Whatever. Get the idea. Okay, so we've done that, created the initial row. This is basically how the what tile the mouse is over is worked out now. Basically, we go through all the rows and all the tiles, chunks in an array. And if we are being passed something out from the array, so if we get passed a tile back, then we set the output to be that tile's name and the chunk and stuff like that. So just we can see that it's actually being hovered over. We have a couple of different try catches just to make sure that we can handle not being passed anything back or passing null, because if we look at the tile chunk, it will pass null if like we're not part of that chunk. So just to make sure we don't like get an error when it's passed back a null object, just do that. Have 2 try catches. What else? This isn't like an ideal way. I think I can do a more efficient way, which just uses maths rather than having to cycle through all the rows and chunks and whatnot. So yeah, so I will probably come back to that, but yeah, that is how it works for now. Again, we've got a reset method. So basically what this does, it goes through all the rows and all the chunks in every row, and we'll destroy immediate the tile game objects, and then when it's done destroyed all the tiles in the chunk, we'll reset the chunk. And then when it's done all the chunks, it'll reset the row and destroy the row game object and reset the rows of tiles to be a new list, and then set is initialized to false. Okay. Now for actually creating the rows, and these are the methods that are bound to the buttons that you saw on the inspector. I'm going to share. So these buttons correspond to these new methods that I'm about to go over. So create row at the bottom. Basically creates a new game object to act as the parent, names it to be row and however many rows exist at that moment that it's created, and then adds the row script to the game object, and then it will get the row that is currently at the bottom of the script, bottom of the grid, basically, and we'll also get the list of tile chunks using the get tiles as chunks method, because we need to store this to know how long this new row should be, and just set spawn bars to be x 2.0 because we don't need it at the moment, so we'll just set it to that value. And finally, we add this new row that we're adding to the list, so that is now the new bottom row of the list. But we still have a reference to the row that was previously the bottom one, so that'll be the second to bottom now. What we do is we go through, basically, we're going through the list backwards. So for x equals whatever the chunks length, however many chunks there were in the second to last row now. And while x is more than -1, so for x equals the number of chunks to 0 and x minus minus, we basically set spawn bars to be the starting coordinates of what is the second to last chunk. The spawn bars position is the y is decremented by 5 each time. And then we create a new chunk with this spawn pars, and we pass in basically it'll be the last element of the array. So that'd be the index of the row that it wants to get, because we've added that here. And we said it's true because we want to add it to the end of the list, basically. And that is how a new row is created at the bottom of the grid. And it's pretty much identical for the top, except we are incrementing y by 5 rather than decrementing it. And so yeah. Just one thing that might confuse you. This isn't actually adding 5 every time like it's going down. It's just adding 5 to whatever the starting coordinates is here. So it'll always be like 5 above the second to last row, or 5 below if you're creating a row at the bottom. Yeah, so that's how that works. And it's just taking the x coordinate that'd be the same. That makes sense. Create chunk, I've already covered. So expand grid left basically goes through, it basically adds another row of chunks to the left of the grid. I don't know why I'm waving my hand there, but whatever. Yeah. So basically it goes through each row, works out where the first chunk in the row's starting coordinates are, and then we'll create a new chunk with x minus 5 and same y coordinate, so it'll create another chunk on the left of what was the chunk at 0, and then it will grab the index of whatever chunk we are in the list already that we're going through, and we will set that to true. So we're saying, since we've got to add in a chunk to the left, we want to add it to the start of the list so it's all in the right order. So we do that, and then we set the editor utility to set it to dirty, which basically just says, yeah, we're editing the game objects. You need to save it, serialize it, or whatever. Similar thing for right, except we use the element at the end of the list of the rows chunks, and we add 5 rather than taking away 5. Similar thing, and we also have these methods that create the rows at the top and bottom. It's just like a little wrapper thing, I guess. So it basically just calls that method that actually does all the heavy lifting of creating the rows at the top and bottom, and then sets the editor utility to dirty so that it knows to serialize it again. And finally, we just get onto the custom inspector we've got for the level creator. So first off, got the target, which is basically just this instance of a script or whatever instance you got clicked on. So I think you could have more than one and it'd be fine. And then we have a target check just to make sure that we have actually got an instance of a target, and if it's not assigned, then we do it. I've got a method to get the mouse in the scene, so it's return the mouse position in the scene. I believe that'll be that'll be in the world coordinates. I've got a method to set it. So basically, this is just a copy and paste of the code we had in the previous episode, where it'll get the x and y coordinates, take away the mouse position from the height of the screen, so we've got the right position, and convert it to screen to world point, and set the z to 0 because we're working in 2D. And finally, we just set my target.mouse and scene to be my position.mouse and scene, because the reason we aren't using the get mouse and scene is that we need it to be called every frame, and since this is called in on scene GUI, the mouse and scene will be updated every frame in the level creator, rather than having the level creator call get mouse and scene, which not be called every frame, which should be bad. So we do that to keep it updated. Again, on scene GUI, so that's basically just the GUI window for the scene view, which is this view here. I've got a target check, which basically checks that we actually have an instance of level creator script, set mouse position screen, sets mouse position, and it also calls the test is mouse over chunk. Again, that is just a method to check that check what tile we are hovering over. Again, it's called from here because we want it to be called every frame, and that is the only method I know of so far to work out that gets called every frame while the editor isn't playing or isn't in play mode. So yeah. And finally, last little bit, I promise, the inspector GUI. Again, it's fairly simple this. So we draw the default inspector. If my target's null, we do nothing. Otherwise, if the level creator hasn't been initialized, we'll have a button to create a new editor map, and that calls the create initial chunk method. But if we have been initialized, it gets 5 buttons instead of 1. 1 is just to reset the map, so I'll send it back. It'll destroy everything and send it back to my target that is initialized. So be false. And we've got the 4 buttons to expand the grid in various directions. Yeah, okay. So again, quick demo of that. So we've got our grid. We can expand it on each side. We can go ham, be massive. We can still get all the tiles from over here, go all the way over here, and you'll see that the tile arts updates while having the row of tiles. Kind of is a pain, but whatever. So if that's a 27 by 5, 200, whatever 270 is divided by 2. Whatever. So yeah, that is our little timelapse editor. Well, the start of it. Next time we'll be covering editing the tiles. I think I'll write the new getting tiles for that at that point. Yeah. So cheers for watching. Like, comment, subscribe, all that shit. Go check out Loud Quiet. I recently put out a new update which has 3 new levels. Vinny the Snitch, where you corner an underground snitch and chase him through a chain tunnel, which ends about as well as you think. We've got the Fortress, where you storm a slumlord's fortress and try and steal data from the heist crew. And Museum, where you are trying to foil / take advantage of a museum robbery of some giant fuck-off diamond, which is all good. So yeah. And as well, there's all the other stuff on itch.io. The link will be in the description. Go check it out. Enjoy. So yeah, like, comment, subscribe, blah, blah, blah. Bye.